Welcome back to Credit Nerdy with your boy Genius, presented to you by Kyronic Financial. Welcome back to Credit Nerdy. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, leave your comment. Today we want to talk again, we want to revisit the disputing process. And specifically, we want to speak about verified. What must I do when I submit a dispute and the response was that it's verified? Sometime after we send in a dispute and it states that it's verified, we actually become frustrated because they're responding that it's verified. So let me kind of walk you through what should happen when you lodge a dispute to help you to understand how to respond to when it's verified. When you send out a dispute, this will not be a long video. When you send out a dispute and it comes back as verified, right? There are certain things that must actually take place in order for them to say it's verified. But a lot of times what's supposed to take place doesn't really take place. And these are the things that must be done. When you submit a dispute, an indirect dispute, let me deal with the credit bureau, because most people who dispute, they usually do it through the credit bureau. Most people don't worry with the creditor, but you should. The obligation of the creditor, the credit bureau under the FCRA is this. Once you submit a dispute, they have to review the dispute and they must, within 5 days, submit that dispute to the creditor. The creditor must take that dispute, run an investigation. According to the FCRA, it must be a reasonable investigation. And the word reasonable as a qualifier is loaded. It means that there are certain things that the creditor must do in order for it to be reasonable. And if those things are not done, then the creditor can be liable under the FCRA, right? When the creditor run their investigation, and as I said before in a video, that you must be specific. In a previous video that I did, I think it's a video that I did on frivolous, how to respond to when you are told that the dispute is frivolous or irrelevant. When you submit the dispute, right, the creditor must run a reasonable investigation. And as I said, that word reasonable is a legal term and it entails certain details. They must look at what you actually is saying, and when you submit a dispute, do not be general. If it's too general, they can label it as frivolous or irrelevant, right? You need to have certain specificity in what you are asking them to do and what is wrong, why you are disputing it. But as I said, there's a trick to doing this where you don't want, if you're looking for a deletion, if you just want to correct information, then you can be specific. But if you're looking for the account to be deleted, you have to be skillful where it is not as specific, but it is not vague, where they can actually say it's irrelevant or frivolous. And you don't want to be too specific, because when you submit a dispute, they can either correct the information, update the information, and just do that. And if you're looking for a deletion, it will not be deleted. So if you're looking for a deletion, you have to put enough information where it's not vague, but it's not too specific, where they can actually update it and you don't get the result that you need. If that makes sense. So when you submit it, they have to do an investigation. If they cannot verify the account or the information is not complete, they must delete it. They must delete it according to the law. a lot of times they will send you back that it's verified. When they say to you that it's verified, you have the right to ask them what. So this would be the follow-up if they say that it's verified. So this is where you actually now will need to respond to them if they say that it's verified. They have to use information that is in their system or in their file to corroborate whether the information is legitimate and is correct, and then that's when they respond. A lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, the level of thoroughness that should go into a reasonable investigation, the creditor is not doing that. And they just look on certain things in their file. And how we know this? There's a lot of court cases where inaccurate information was being reported in consumer files. And when it is disputed, it came back as verified and it was actually not true. So it means then that they're not following reasonable procedure. And they're not conducting a reasonable investigation in order to correct what is there. So a lot of times when they tell you that it's verified, they're not doing the proper investigation. So now you have to ask them, okay, this information is not correct from my experience and what I know. Please tell me, what did you use to corroborate this information to reach the conclusion that you have reached, that it is verified and it is true? And ask them to present that information. What did they use? Because they're supposed to tell you. But a lot of time they don't. They will give you general answer. Right? You need to respond and ask them to tell you what did they use to corroborate the verification process. Right? A lot of times they will use other sources to verify. That is the creditor. Now, the bureau. What should the bureau do? Stated by law to also do their investigation to make sure that the information that the creditor is supplying them is factually true and is accurate. So they have an independent responsibility to investigate whether or not the information is accurate. So the responsibility is not only on the creditor to verify the information, the credit bureau also must verify the information. They have an independent responsibility to make sure that the credit report that they assemble has only accurate and complete verifiable information. 3 things must happen. Must be accurate, must be complete, because it can be accurate but not complete, and if it's not, it must be deleted. And it must be verified that it fulfills the requirement of the first 2, being accurate and complete. Okay? So the bureau must run their own investigation. So when you get that response from the bureau, now you can write the creditor and ask them, what did you use to verify this dispute? Because when the creditor run their dispute and come to the conclusion, they must send back to the bureau and tell them what was the conclusion of their investigation. And the bureau must run their own investigation and then tell you what was the conclusion too. Let me run that back by you again for clarity's sake. When you submit the dispute, the bureau within 5 days must forward it to the creditor. The creditor must run their investigation, a reasonable investigation, and as I said, that carry legal ramification. And the bureau must run a reasonable investigation independent of the creditor to make sure what the creditor is supplying is true. So both of them are liable under the FCRA when it comes on to dispute. And if it can be proven that the creditor did not run a reasonable investigation, that's when they become liable. If it can be proven that the Bureau did not run a reasonable investigation, that's when they become liable as well. So both of them must run. So don't let anyone tell you that once the creditor does it, then that's good enough and the Bureau can just tell you, no, under the FCRA, both of them must run an investigation to make sure that the information that is being supplied, because as I said, your consumer report is a moral statement about you. It's not just information on a piece of paper. It has a bearing on your character, your general reputation, your mode of living. That's what the FCRA says. So your consumer report, your financial identity is a statement about your character. And that's why it must be accurate. And that's why it must be complete. And that's why it must be verified to fulfill those two requirements. So anyone that tells you that, so when you get that response, now you're going to write the Bureau and ask them what did they use. A lot of times, and this is why it is always said when you're going to start the process of disputing, the first thing that you need to do is to block the secondary bureaus, because there's a lot of secondary bureaus. I will have some video coming on breaking down to you the secondary bureaus, because there are a few major ones, but there's a lot of them. And a lot of them. So I'm going to be running some video on those and several of them over the next couple of videos. Not necessarily the next video, but I will be doing that. That is why it is always encouraged to block those, because what happened is that the major credit bureaus, the national credit bureaus, use sometimes those smaller bureaus to corroborate the information and then respond to you and say verify, because apart from what they have in there in the file, sometimes it's difficult for them to verify them, because they have to commit to a reasonable investigation, a reinvestigation, and use reasonable procedure. They actually add they use the secondary bureaus to verify information. So when you block those secondary bureaus, it's harder for them to use them to verify the information. You understand? They can get information from them, but it's a little bit more challenging, as they do interact with each other. And you have data brokers that sell them information all the time. So you do that dispute. When they tell you who they are getting the information from, then you run a dispute with whoever. If it's a data broker or a secondary bureau, then you run a dispute with that secondary bureau that they are supplying inaccurate information to the credit bureaus, to the major credit bureaus, and then you do the dispute with them and let them verify where they're getting it from. And once you get them to capitulate or to give up, then you can attack back the bureau and say, listen, the person that you say give you this, see, they are now saying that information is not correct. So therefore you need to delete what you have. And you do it. So that is how you respond to when they tell you that it's verified. Alright, I hope that this video was helpful. I will do several more videos on disputing, because a lot of new individuals to the credit repair industry don't really understand what to do after they get certain response. So I'm trying to help you with these videos, and as regular consumers, I am here to help you so you understand what is the process that takes place when you file a dispute, what are the obligations of the parties that are involved, and what moves you need to make in order to address what they are actually saying to you. Right? So I hope that this video was helpful. Have a great day.